Today we're going to talk about the SensorPush temperature and humidity smart sensor and explain why it's one of my favorite little redundancies for monitoring your fridge when you're out exploring and camping. Coming up, my name's Drew and this is Evergreen Overland. On this channel we showcase 4x4 vehicle modifications, we hone our outdoor cooking skills, and we do reviews on camping and overland gear like the one we're going to talk about today. So a lot of my background and passion has always been in kitchens and culinary and just producing really good food, and that same passion definitely carries over to when I'm out enjoying the great outdoors. I think a lot about the food I'm going to be preparing when I'm going on a trip and how I'm going to be holding and storing that food. And one thing that I've always struggled with is just trusting some of the temperature readouts and all that kind of stuff really in any fridge or freezer. And that's not limited to just refrigeration and freezers that we carry out in the field like the National Luna behind me or my ARB over there, or the Dometics, or the plethora of different brands. I always like to check and keep an eye on where my refrigeration temperatures are. It's important for me to know personally that all the food I'm going to be preparing and serving to people was held at the proper and safe temperature the whole time it's in my possession. And that same reason kind of ties into why I chose to go with the National Luna. I'm not ready to do a full review on this thing. I just haven't had it long enough and played with it quite as much as I want to out in the field, but they are really known for being super precise in how they hold things. National Luna, I'm pretty sure, got their start in Africa, basically with the need of having to be super consistent on temperatures for delivering medical vaccines and stuff like that out into the bush. My first fridge, which I still have and I still use, was an ARB 43 quart, I want to say. It served me pretty well, but honestly, even with the aftermarket monitoring system that you can buy to plug in the Wi-Fi into the back of the fridge and then mount your little readout head unit somewhere, wherever you want to with 12 volt power, I just didn't feel like it was ever consistent. I was never really happy with how consistently it was holding temperatures, and honestly, I feel like it was pretty rare that the readout on that thing, or even on the front of the actual fridge itself, was accurately depicting the temperature that was in the fridge. That was my first introduction into 12 volt fridges. Since then, with this build, I really wanted to not only up my quality and consistency of holding temperature, which the National Luna definitely does, but also to just take a look at a different brand out there to see what a different experience might be. But even with the upgrade that transitioning to this fridge freezer combo is, I was still missing out on kind of the full picture of what the fridge freezer is doing. So with my nagging kind of always needing to know where my food temperatures are, I started looking around for some sort of option to add a different level of redundancy to monitoring my whole system. And that led me looking around online. What I was looking for is a Bluetooth compatible and battery powered temperature sensor. And what I found is the HT1 SensorPush temperature and humidity monitoring system that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And let's take a quick peek at one of the devices. There you go. So far, this little guy has been the answer to all of my fridge monitoring questions. It's a small little unit, not a whole lot to it. It's about a little over 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches by 0.65 of an inch here. It's got a little spot for a dongle that you could put in there if you wanted to hang it or clip it to something. Super simple to use. All you got to do is open it up, download the iOS or Android app, pair this sucker to it, and then throw it wherever you want the temperature and humidity to be monitored. The reason this thing has humidity is because a lot of people use these in their humidors for their cigars or their safes or, guitar cases, places where you really want to know humidity in the air. But what I'm primarily using this for is the temperature readout and recording that it offers me from minute to minute, day to day, or week to week. This little guy records where it's at every minute and stores that in the device for up to 2 weeks. And then anytime that you're close enough for the SensorPush to link up to the device that you have the mobile app on, it downloads all that information so that you have it for as far back as you've been syncing the two devices up. So I've had these things for basically over a month. I've been playing with the monitoring on them and putting them in different locations and all that kind of stuff. Monitoring in the fridge, since that pretty much stays plugged in most of the time. I have 2 of these devices since I have a front and a back compartment in the National Luna. I usually keep one a little colder than the other depending on what I'm trying to carry. So the front one still has one in there that's been in there for a couple of days. It says it's holding steady right now at 32.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I have my little analog thermometer that I'm going to throw in a little cup of water that's been sitting in there, so it's kind of equalized temperature wise. And I'm just going to check to make sure that these things are calibrated properly and giving me a good readout. Now I'm also going to do a little redundancy with it. This is just for a little bit of fun. It's meant for monitoring meat cooking temperatures, so you're probably going to be more more accurate at higher temperatures. Just as a quick side note, if you ever need to zero out an analog thermometer like the one I put in the cup, fill a cup full of ice, put water in there, let it equalize in temperature, and then that cup should be at 32 degrees. Those analog thermometers, if you ever need to calibrate them, you just grab the back little nut on the back of them, turn it, and that turns the dial. You can turn it to exactly 32 degrees, and then you know your thermometer is calibrated. Grabbed the thermometer and it was reading basically right at 32 degrees, right at 32 to 34. So I'm super happy with how close that is. And although this isn't a test of the National Luna per se, this compartment of the National Luna is set at 0 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything's kind of apples to apples, lining up where it should. That's the idea. One of the cool features about these things is that it can be hooked up to multiple different devices. So if you want to monitor it, on your phone when you're around camp versus on your tablet when you're driving down the road, you can have that option to hook it up to multiple different units. If you're liking this video so far and want to take a second to smash that like button below, I definitely appreciate it. Right now, my tablet only has this guy wired up to it because it was the first one I got. I'm going to pull the other one out, show you guys how easy it is to link it up to your mobile app, and then we'll kind of take a look at some of the functionality behind it. All right, here we go. Right now, my phone is monitoring both of the sensors. This is the one I just took out, and you can see that the temperature is rising from the refrigerated temperatures, and the one I put back in, the temperature is falling. Let's go ahead and fire this bad boy up. This is just my dedicated navigation and vehicle tablet that I have. Currently, it has the one monitor hooked up to it. Let's go ahead and add another one. All you really need to do, press that. It gives you two options. You can add another sensor or you can add a gateway. We're going to go ahead and choose to add another sensor right there. All you do is hold your sensor above the image and you're good to go. From that point, now it has two sensors loaded into it. You can choose to rename it right here. You can go through and set a high and low limit for your temperature, high and low limit for your relative humidity, and that just basically gives it so that it's going to notify you if your temperature raises beyond a point or lowers beyond a point where you want it to. Now this starts monitoring on the specific device once it's been paired with your unit here. My other device has this unit already paired with it, so it has a history in it, but this one's starting history from when it was originally paired. So that's what it'll be on this device. That's perfectly fine. The secondary unit has been paired up for a pretty long time. So we tap into this unit. It gives you a full timeline of its temperatures and humidity. So if we look at this today by the hour, it shows when I took it out of the fridge and the temperature starting to rise there. If we select by the day, it shows the wave of it going into, its cycle of frost and defrost, frost and defrost. So that's super consistent. If we go over the week, it shows when I actually fired up and put this thing in there last Thursday. And then it actually goes back for me on this guy all the way to basically the beginning of the month, end of December, and it shows you all the peaks and valleys from me playing with this thing in different configurations and different locations, from fridges to around the house and all sorts of stuff like that. The SensorPush will link up with whatever device you have it loaded on within 352 feet line of sight. That doesn't quite make it through, the multiple walls in my house to like sitting on my couch, but I pass by the truck at least once a day. So it records and will have my information on my mobile app basically from the time I originally paired it with the device. Here's the information on the gateway. What the gateway does is it acts as a little router for the most part to your internet. So it can hook one of the SensorPush devices up to your internet so that you can monitor things when you're actually away and not in line of sight. Not super necessary for going on a backwoods camping and exploration trip, but if you were to be using these in maybe a fridge or a freezer at your house when you're on vacation, you could set up high and low alarms to be notified remotely. Let's say if your power went off for 3 or 4 days and your fridge is dropped below temperature. I love being able to monitor my fridge temperatures on the fly with this little guy from the cab of my vehicle or just sitting out by the campfire, but the ability to come home after a trip, park the truck, plug in the fridge using the NOCO AC power port that I have in the side of the Habitat. Take a look for the link to that video here. Take a look at the history of the sensor, see that the fridge temperatures never dropped into the danger zone for holding food, and then take that food into my house and consume it without making us sick. You guys know I love gear. This thing is a pretty cool little piece of tech to add to your system just to give you some redundancy in your refrigeration, knowing that you're always keeping your food where you want it to when some of the coolers on the market aren't going to be as consistent as we'd all like. For 49 bucks on Amazon, you can get this device. They just released another device that's waterproof. That seems a little overkill, not needed for my application, but heck, if you want it, you can have it. I highly recommend going and picking one of these guys up. Although I've only had it for a month, I'm pretty impressed with it. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong. And from what I've seen looking around online and through the comments, they stand behind their product pretty well. Solved a problem for me, giving me peace of mind for the food I'm preparing for people out on the trail. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button down below. Mash that like button to let me know I've done a good job. You can mash the bell icon to be notified when I put out a new video every week. If you want to throw any questions or comments below in the comments section of this video, definitely do so. I love answering questions. I love interacting with you guys. If you want to follow me over on Instagram, it's at @EvergreenOverland, as well as evergreenoverland.com that I'm starting to develop a little bit more. There'll be links in the description section below of the SensorPush and their other devices. If you want to follow those links over to Amazon, it definitely helps the channel buy some of these smaller things here and there. I hope you get a chance to get out, enjoy the great outdoors, play with some of your gear. Just have a good day.